real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Welcome to another episode of Perception Paradox, where we explore the stories that challenge the status quo and reshape our perspectives. And today we're joined by Theo Zätterström, a remarkable guest who transitioned from a corporate career to self-employment and advocates for ADHD and neurodiversity awareness. I crossed paths with Theo on LinkedIn, I think some time ago, where we connected for a conversation to explore how we could support each other. Maybe there are some skills we can share. Maybe we can help each other. And we were both embarking on new journeys in our lives, and we were pretty open for a conversation. And now we're here. And Theo's journey is a testament to the power of embracing one's unique qualities for overcoming fear and failure and really chasing the dreams, I would say. So get ready for an inspiring conversation that will undoubtedly will broaden your horizons. So, hi, Theo. Welcome to Perception Paradox.
Hi, and thank you. Damn, that was some kind words. I love it.
You're a kind person, kind words for kind people. Uh, Great to have you. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, thank you. I'm feeling great. I've had one workout today, and yeah, it's actually sunny in mid October here in Sweden, so that feels awesome. So yeah, I'm feeling good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm right now in Barcelona, so it's also sunny, and I was just waking up today, having my rituals, preparation, and work. Let's dive into the kind of first question that might set for us the direction of our journey for today. And I just wanted to ask you, Thea, can you look back a bit and think of a moment from your life when you discovered that being yourself, fully embracing your unique qualities, was the key to unlocking your potential?
I wouldn't say it was one specific unique situation, but it was definitely during COVID. I was 29, and our company had like welcome to my crib, and during this we did remotely, showed like how we lived and those kind of things. And in the comment sections, people were writing like Theo speaks faster than I think and stuff like that. And I was thinking, damn, I'm here on a low day where I feel kind of not that energized and stuff, and people still see me as an alien. So that's when I was like, maybe I should ask a psychiatrist or like someone that knows about ADHD, what that is. I took a call with some online psychiatrist that I just asked questions, and she started asking me questions, and that's when I kind of understood that living in a society that is built for everyone else's brain, if I can say so,
Mm-hmm.
compared to my own, where a lot of people think about life as a marathon, and that kind of don't work for me. I think about that I live in short sprints. So
Okay.
that I think that was a turning point when I was 29, 30, and I realized that I've been trying to live on everyone else's uh, play like rules and so forth, and I kind of started to discovering like a second puberty on how I should live my life and do changes towards it that maybe everyone else doesn't. So I would say that everything from like 29 up until still figuring out, but trying to find new things that works for me, if that kind of was the answer to your
Mm-hmm.
question.
Yeah, great. That's a quite a great start, I think, and it's very interesting that you mentioned that it happened in 2020, which is quite a recent situation, and you were involved in your career, your life was settling down a bit, perhaps. How did this idea of you potentially having ADHD came to your mind to the first place? Was it something you were hearing from before in your life, or you were just trying to find kind of some answers?
No, for sure. I've heard it several times. You probably has a letter combination. I've always gotten that thrown in my face. It was one person close to me, a child that I was looking at, that I thought that the adults around were not really being able to stimulate the child, and we were always giving that the child a bad time, where we were
Mm.
like failing as adults, I would say. So in that sense, and then when so many things added up, I was like, maybe I should start looking at this uh, just to find answers, because obviously there's a struggle here that I kind of, not in the same way that this child was going through it, but kind of the same way, not as much. And that kind of got me, there might be something here that I don't know of. And then going through in Sweden, it's this big, rigorous investigation process to go through with so many different doctors and psychiatrists and you name it. But I got to
Hmm.
learn so much on how other people have had hacks and tricks and ways of working, which have helped me so far. So it was somewhere there, like in the midst of, like, I've always struggled in a company, and people have always seen me as different in everywhere that I go, and then also seeing this child having struggle. So this combined got me to like explore it a bit more, and I'm really really thankful for it, because that has been a key for me to building kind of the life that I want.
Mm. How did you feel when you got the confirmation? Okay, clearly you have ADHD.
Yeah, it's still a very big like gray zone for me, because in Sweden it's we have a public healthcare and we still have private. So I'm too functional in Sweden to get the diagnosis ADHD.
Mm.
You really need to have crashed or lost jobs or so forth, like really have it bad. I've been deep in I mean in different kinds of addictions and so forth, but it hasn't burned enough to actually get the diagnosis. Or when I came there and we went through this 1 year process, 1.5 years, like at the end they were like, we can help you with uh, like you can get help from a psychiatrist and things like that. So for me, I don't have it on paper. Uh, However, if I would go to a private place here in Sweden, I would get the diagnosis. Uh, but now, when I've been very open with this, this is a big issue in Sweden. Our healthcare has some challenges when it comes to this. And when I'm doing my podcast with Elin
Mhm.
about ADHD in Swedish, though, there's a lot of people that have struggled a lot and still don't get help by the public. So they have like resonated a lot with my story. So I'm very open and transparent with it. If I would go to the public, I don't feel the need right now. I would still get certain kinds of medications as ADHD people will get, and psychiatrists that are specialized with ADHD. So they're basically saying you have ADHD, but you're functioning too well in society, so you're not getting the diagnosis.
Mm. That's quite interesting also when we speak about this diagnosis, right? Sometimes what I've noticed lately in the society, that kind of we're seeking for some categories to put our problems into, either ADHD or some mental disease, instead of really tackling the root cause or finding the tools how we can cope and solve these kind of situations and adjust our lifestyles. And a lot of times I've noticed that people tend to put themselves, or we as human beings, into a victim or vulnerable position, that, oh, right now I'm in this situation and I'm a victim. From your communication external, what I really admired, I've noticed that you often spoken about the myths of the ADHD superpower and challenging the different perspectives. Can you share a bit more about your insights?
Of course, and thank you for that compliment. It warms my heart to hear it, because I think that there are more prejudice about ADHD out there than it's actually like people having the knowledge about it. And the things with when people are saying it's a superpower and so forth, I just think it's unrealistic. The thing is that if you look at ADHD as a whole, you have I don't know how many times higher risk of alcoholism, of drug abuse, of risky sex, dying from suicide, There are so many things. Like the average ADHD person lives 14 years shorter than a neurotypical person. And a lot of this is because there isn't enough knowledge for these people on how to work with their brain. Because it's basically how I usually say it is that when I wake up in the morning, my eyes are just fine. And my friends that had like glasses their whole lives are always jealous and saying like, how can you just wake up and your eyes are working? That's awesome, you know? And when I went through the ADHD like investigation and got to understand how my brain works, I realized that like my friends, they wake up to a society that's built more or less around their brain, while I wake up to a society that's not at all built towards my brain. My brain is wired in different things. Obviously, this society that we live with social media and all of these things, is not necessarily healthy for anyone, but
Mm.
it's so much harder for a lot of people with ADHD, because a lot of times people don't understand what ADHD is, but uh, our brain has 5 different dopamine receptors. I think it's 5, so
Mhm.
don't quote me on this one. And on one of these, there is a mutation on. And that mutation makes the dopamine receptor not being able to regulate dopamine. And dopamine is the
Ah.
thing that, that motivates us, makes us feel happy and so forth. So I usually try to paint the mental picture of like, let's say that you have 0 to 100% dopamine. And during the day, the dopamine will go up and down like this.
Mhm.
And for a neurotypical person, that dopamine levels might be 35 to 65 up and down in between like this. And maybe you need to clean your room, you might need 40. So sometimes when you're down at like 35, you don't have enough motivation to actually clean your room, but you eat a banana or you go for a walk, whatever, and the dopamine is back and you can do it. At ADHD brain, they're more down at 8, 9, 12 dopamine
Mhm.
levels. And then when something interesting happens that they really find enjoyable doing, that spikes up to 95, and they
Oh,
can sit
that's a
and
big
work with it.
difference.
Yeah, and they can sit and do that. And then it's like a big drop down again. So when you're doing things that you like, it's very easy to be motivated and do it. And that's when people are like, oh, it's a superpower, because they can only see when they're focused and doing something fine. But then realizing to clean your room for a neurotypical going from 35 to 40, it's not that big of a jump. But for someone that has 8 in dopamine to jump up to 35, that's a whole another mountain to climb. So
Oh.
so that's kind of how I try to like paint the picture for people to kind of understand what it is to have ADHD. And then once again, ADHD is different for every single person, but that's like a pretty decent picture, I would say. Or did that uh, did that help you understand a bit more? Or
It does help to have a better understanding and comparison. And that those drops, they happen every day, or it really depends. It can be a longer spike period of really having high dopamine. Let's say you're working on an interesting project, and can you have a very, very long runway of that dopamine, and then you have a bigger crash, or how does that work?
for me, it's all about making everything into a structure. I've been an elite swimmer back in the day. I have a few national goals in swimming and so forth.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've always been working out a lot. And my ADHD symptoms, when that really crashed, was when I stopped swimming and I started working full time when I was 25. And what I realize now is that when I need to focus so strict on the food that I eat and the amount of, instead of chasing dopamine, trying to chase endorphins, like working out and stuff. I work out around 90 minutes a day. So I usually try to do 2 times 45 minutes each day. And because I'm not diagnosed ADHD in
Mhm.
this kind of sense, so I don't get that medication that a lot of people have that stimulates the dopamine. So for me, the only way to stay consistent is to have a rigorous system and really doing it every day. If I have like one off day, this is also pretty annoying to the people that I live with and have a relationships with, because I'm so strict with things. If I'm not strict, it's so easy for me to just crash and burn and don't get anything done. Um, so for me to stay long term with dopamine, it's really like 2 practice a day, eating home cooked food. It's all about understanding what I need because it might hit me harder to deviate from my structure than it would another typical person.
How do you deal when you're down and the drop of energy? And because kind of, if I would like just to give this insight, I feel like now since you're aware and with the age we become more conscious and aware of the environments, how did that change with your drops before you knew what's happening with your brains? And how do you tackle it right now?
I think that it's been easier for me to exclude things in my life. Obviously, it's a maturing thing as well, where I stopped drinking alcohol, for instance, because for someone that has difficulty producing and regulate dopamine, alcohol spikes your dopamine and serotonin a lot, which means that the day after the hangover is going to be so much harder because if you already have problem producing dopamine and regulating it, a hangover is not going to help any more or any less. Like it's going to be awful. So I quit alcohol a year and a half ago, and that has been a big change for me. It has helped me. I'm still out hanging out, but drinking alcoholic free, and it's still making sure that I get up in the morning and doing my like workouts before
Mhm.
I start the day and so forth. But then also it has given me so much more self-love because understanding that some things is very difficult for me to do, and it doesn't matter how much I try, it's not worth my time with the energy that it cost me of doing certain things. And I did a post recently where I divided the things that I don't want to do into 3 things. Like the first option is the things that I hate with all my heart, and I will not even try to do those things. Accounting, even though I studied accounting, I will not do accounting for my company. The things that I hate with a big part of my heart, those are the things that are usually body doubling. Body doubling is something it's called where you just have someone next to you, which means that you probably get motivated or you feel a more of a sense of responsibility externally, which helps
Mhm.
me. So cleaning my room, for instance, like cleaning the apartment when my girlfriend is around, it helps me. She doesn't need to clean. She should just be here. And that helps me to get going with things.
Oh,
Yeah, and the same with Elin, the one that I had the ADHD podcast with. When we have things that we need to do that we don't like, we just sit in a Zoom meeting and we do it in silence and we do it together. And then the third one, the things that I hate with a little bit of my heart, call it recovery. So instead of recovery, it's pre-covery. I
hmm.
need some downtime. It's not procrastination, but it's a downtime when I just lay in bed and most of the time just stare in the ceiling and just like I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna start doing this like soon, soon. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes, or sometimes it takes 55 minutes. But if I pre-cover, the thing will get done. But if I don't do that and I try that thing, I will like I start, but then I will start doing something else and I will procrastinate for 43 days or something like that. So just getting to know myself and find similar people have helped me a lot with where I'm at today compared to where I was 3 years ago.
I think it's very valuable to learn more about how life changes when you understand that you might have ADHD or someone in your environment might have, because we kind of tend to act and behave the same way, and it takes time for us to open up and create room for people who has just different thinking flow. And it doesn't matter, does that person doesn't have to have ADHD, but I think these kind of conversations, what you're sharing, really opens up our mind about the human connection and understanding. So talking about that, I would like to learn more about Theo's life and philosophy. Lately and nowadays, especially after the COVID times, many people are kind of striving for the sense of purpose in our lives. Our priorities are shifting. We're kind of reconsidering our actions and the places we live, the things we do. How do you define your purpose today? What really drives you? What makes you wake up every morning?
Great question. When I find it, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But but I do like that you say drive because I just got to hear like the difference between drive and ambition. Drive is something that's internal, ambition is more external and ego. And
Uh-huh.
I've always thought of myself that I had a lot of drive and not a lot of ambition. But what I do, like, what I'm building is obviously one thing is the ADHD community, which is very early. But the other thing is that I coach sales managers and CEOs within the tech and scale up scene. And I coach them on increasing their sales, building repetitive processes, and so forth. But a lot of times it's self improvement, and I really enjoy the conversations where you're not in the conversation to be liked. You're in the conversation because both people want to improve. That is one of the most fun things that I know, to have discussions, and both when I get challenged, but also obviously in my role I have to challenge a lot, and challenge the perspective of the person or my clients and so forth. And I really enjoy those conversations where it's both a psychological safe space, and it's also a vulnerable space where
Mm-hmm.
you're open. It's not a lot of ego, and I think that
Yeah.
that's probably my drive. I really enjoy those conversations, and I'm just looking on how can I have more of those, basically.
That's so interesting. Can I also touch base about this like vulnerable safe spaces, right? And it kind of rings a bell about us as human beings facing the fear and failure. And fear of failure is like something really many people grapple with. And sometimes that fear is so big that we're really afraid to make any change. And sometimes we consciously choose to stay in the situation we are because of how big is the fear. Maybe you could take us back to some kind of moment in your life when fear of failing was at its peak. And I'm really curious to learn, how did you navigate it and what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, great question. Knowing myself, if I just like fly in one direction and don't come back, please let me know, just so you know.
Of course, of
Uh,
course.
yeah, but how like fear of failure, the thing is like maybe this is a bit philosophical, but that's also like what the hell is a failure? And a lot of times when I've been a sales manager and I helped other sales managers, we have always set up like a fuck up Friday or a fail Friday to discuss those things within the team a lot more. And in when I was a swimmer, like I wasn't the best in the world, but I was a decent swimmer. And especially like Sweden is a pretty small country. People know of each other. So within the swimming space, I was someone. I wasn't the best or anything like that, but I was someone. And I think that it was a really tough spot for me to leave that and go into sales or go into the working space where I didn't know anyone, didn't understand anything else. Like, because most of the time that all my free time has gone to practicing and training.
Mhm.
So leaving that was a really tough, identity shift for me. And I
Hmm.
think that within that first years within sales, where I started with, I thought that selling a lot and uh, being someone that people respect or whatever was something to look up to. I think that that was a drive out of like fear of failure,
Yeah.
where now I kind of have understood that, yeah, I get motivated by the whip. Like I want to take away as much pain as possible. But in order, the best way for me to doing so is to be a very fun orientated person. So I need to make sure that I'm having fun with the things that I do.
Mhm.
So a lot of times what I'm trying to do is to have fun with the things that I do. And if it fails, it fails. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I don't bother the result that much. The result is not what I'm there for. I'm
And
more trying to find the behavior of what I'm trying to do
yeah.
more of.
Was it always the same way? Because I recall, like, when I think of our previous conversations, right? Right now, you're making a big leap in your career. You kind of got out there, actively in public, helping the sales team to become better teams. You're self-independent, and you were doing some kind of changes before in your career as well. So was it always that kind of approach and mindset? Well, if I fail, I fail, or did you have some kind of concerns about such big changes? Because it is a big change in your
Yeah,
work
for
life.
sure. So with the first swimming and the first sales job, I mean, most of the things that I've done in life has come very easy for me, and I've been really good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Then with the first sales job, I was a good salesperson, but a lot of times my life wasn't the best, and I thought that that might have been. I mean, I thought that I was a big failure from time to time, and I think that that also has been tied into my understanding that I've had ADHD, which have made me not I've been trying to do things that I shouldn't be trying to do. So,
Okay.
I mean, and before this podcast, I talked to my friend Elin, the one that I had the pod with, and when we started, a lot of times, I mean, we had like 30 episodes that we never released because she didn't think they were good enough. And we have discussed this a lot where I don't really care if it's good or not. I just want to push it out to
Mm-hmm.
see the reaction. I should not be the decision maker if this is good or not. If I'm trying to sell something, I try to sell it, and then I'll see how people respond to it. If I try to keep building things to make sure that it's within my standards, I would just keep building and building and building. So I think that after understanding the journey that I've had the last years, I've been focusing so much more on like having fun and then trying one of the things out and like, did it work? Did it not work? And then realizing, okay, if it didn't work, it's a progress. I'll understand. But
Mm-hmm.
did it work? Awesome. Then I can probably sell this a bit more. Um,
Pretty cool. I like your approach. Like it's about having fun, and the way I see life, it's life is a game, and but I also learned actually that even though life is a game, we have to embrace the harmony, right? Because there is always the good. If you have the good, you will have the bad. If you have the bad, you will have the good, and it's always a balance game. So how do you embrace it, and how do you kind of consciously be you are aware of a situation that just makes life so easier that
yeah, and to add to that, I saw a quote somewhere. I don't remember who said it, but it's a lot of times I've had great ups and I've had great downs, and I've always been trying, when can I find a balance and why can't I be more like stable and so forth. And it was a quote that said like, if you're not having the ups and downs, you're flatlining. It means that you're dead.
Mhm.
So I
Mm.
love that quote. Uh, Embrace the roller coaster. That
Yeah,
it's much more fun than like
yeah.
trying to tie yourself into it, you know?
When I
Uh,
started embracing that, that really became way more fun, actually. Talking about adventures, you're doing quite a lot of stuff also besides, let's say, this professional career, and one of them is this adventure game, and that you're running with your brother, if I'm correct.
yeah,
And I think that that provides kind of a unique perspective for you as well, running the kind of race. And then I'm curious to learn how the lessons from managing the adventure races that you've been doing for quite a few years influence your approach towards leadership and navigating the challenges in your work life.
yeah, of course. So it's called a swim run, and it's a sport that started around 15,
Yeah.
16 years ago, and we were the second race that started. And we have had as most 2,000 participants, but it's nothing that I make money off. But
Hmm.
what my brother and I have realized is that we get people that might live in the city, and we get them out in nature, and after they've been having this great 2 hour in nature, running, swimming, they tend to be more locally focused in their vacation plans forward and so forth. So it's been super fun to build that. One thing that's like, we've had all kinds of injuries and problems and so forth.
Okay.
We have had,
Okay.
yeah,
But
percentage of
what
everyone.
did it teach you? What did you learn from running this
Yeah,
race?
and that's the thing. Like, our goal is that everyone should make themselves through the whole course without too many injuries. And
Hmm.
having gone through those kind of incidents when you need to, make sure that everyone is fine, crisis mode, and so forth. Then when you're trying to sell a SaaS product and people are stressed, it's easy to be like, yeah, but no one's gonna die, like for real.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, great.
it's a product, you know.
Okay.
And I think that has been probably the biggest lessons. I remember when when I was interviewing earlier on in my career for sales positions and sales management positions, and the recruiters and the sales manager would be asking about stressful situations, and I would bring these ones up, and it was so much far fetched for them; they couldn't
Hmm.
even relate. And I think that has taught me a lot about, keeping your head
Yeah.
cool in crisis. And a lot of times, a crisis is never really a crisis.
Why are you doing this? Still, it's been many years, right? It's still the same race, small community, you're not making any money. Why?
Yeah, I mean, we're still like we're still being able to make money, but we don't take it out any in
Mhm.
salary. So
Mm.
our focus is to make sure that people get out in nature and give them a great experience. A lot of times,
Amazing.
yeah, for this sport, it's the like I think Sweden is the biggest market within this sport because we have
Yeah.
such like so many islands and so forth. So Ångaloppet, where our race is usually the first race that everyone does. It's the first race that maybe get them to explore something else, or they realize that they didn't like it. So uh, doing it, it's all about just, as I said before, getting people out in nature that might
Hmm.
just be living in, the stone jungle that most of us live in. And it's, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's tiring. It's a
Yeah.
lot of work and it's long hours. And I mean, my brother and I could not have done it without our families and relatives. They help out so much. We're very lucky to have help from them. But we really want to give people something to, look forward to end the summer and then have a memory that they can be like, oh shit, I did this, you know? And a lot of people think it's awesome to look at a map afterwards they've done this race and see like, oh damn, I did this. It was 25 swims and I swam with my damn running shoes on. So it's
Ah,
yeah, giving like an experience. I
I
think that's
love it.
the main reason.
What a great mission. I'll see if I can make it next year. I would love to join. It's a kind of short trip to Sweden, and the Swedish nature
Yeah,
is incredible. I really, really admire your mission and why you're doing this. It's beautiful. And
thank you.
talking about you being such a versatile person, doing a lot of outdoor sports, business. You shifted your career from working for someone to working for yourself. What would you say to someone who is right now in this consideration that would like to make a change, would like to maybe shift from corporate to entrepreneurship, but are too afraid to do the first step?
Great, great question. I would say like, is what is one small step that you can do right now towards the thing that you want to do? So basically, is it to call someone and ask, you might know a friend of a friend that has a startup that you could ask, like, hey, I have this talent, could I do this for free? That was what I did in the beginning.
Okay.
During COVID, we went down to work 80% instead of 100. So, and I kept doing that afterwards. So during that time, I started doing free things for other companies, just in payments, they would be my references and so forth. So is that one small step that you can do and not focus on the perfectionist that a lot of people focus on, that I need to become this before I can do it? Just try to start with a smaller thing that you can do. Just lend a helping hand to a startup somewhere or whatever, and ask them for two things. Make sure to use the advice that I give you and be a reference next time.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah,
That's a very good advice, actually. As a follow-up, I would like to ask how you do some certain things because one of the things that are stopping us, of course, sometimes it's perfectionism, and also that we're kind of get stuck in our fixed mindset, right? So we really need to activate that growth mindset where we are open to experiment, to fail, to try things, and instead of thinking what others might think and to get this external validation, we have enough courage to try. How do you continue to cultivate that growth mindset in your own daily life? Because it's a process, right? It's not one-time thing.
Yeah. And I think that I might be stepping on some toes here, I don't know, but I
Okay.
think it's the balance between having a growth mindset and a fixed mindset.
Mm.
And a lot of times when I started, it was a growth mindset of, okay, what are the things that I can help other people with? And start doing those as a small gesture. I started with being a photographer and videographer for some companies. I did sales trainings for some people. I did LinkedIn sales training for some people. I had LinkedIn courses for people that were applying for work during 2021. So I had like every Sunday I met up with 5 people that were without a job and helped them search and look for jobs and
Mm.
strategize. So like that's like when you take the first step, I think that growth mindset is the best key to be there, where you're like, okay, where should I start, and try different things, because you probably don't know what you want to do, or
Oh, yeah.
what your market value is within the different things. Then when you have started those things and got going, I would also start to ask, like, if this would have been someone else, what would you have paid them to have done this thing? And I'm not saying that you should pay now, but just give me a reasonable thing that you can, so I can market it next time, and then start taking cash for your services or whatever you might need. And then a lot of times my struggle has been that I've just kept experimenting, and I've been like adding on newer and newer things, because I don't know if it's called growth mindset, but it's kind of what I think it is,
Hmm.
where I now kind of more need to adapt more of a fixed mindset of being, this is the thing that I should do, and I should do it over and over and over
Yeah.
again. So my struggle right now is to be, because I mean I get a lot of inbounds at LinkedIn, because I'm not an influencer or anything like that, but I have around like 1.3 million views, and I get a fair bit of inbounds each week.
Hmm.
And a lot of times before, I just jumped on all of them, which made it difficult to me to kind of focus on one thing. So now I disqualify a lot of the inbounds that I do, and focus much more on the things where I should be, if
Mm.
I can say it so. So I think the balance between growth mindset and fixed mindset is very interesting and difficult to really uh, to really master.
Very good point, actually. You mentioned that you have quite a lot of LinkedIn views, and LinkedIn has become a very powerful social media tool. How long you've been growing your audience, and what would be your like this one maybe advice for everyone who maybe is just starting out with their communication on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, my first inbound lead was in 2016, so I started pretty early. However, my focus has never been to grow an audience,
Hmm.
which I sometimes regret, but it also paints a picture more of everyone can get something useful. I think I have like 7,000 connections. I wouldn't even say followers, because I'm connected with most
Yeah.
of them, you know. Uh, but how I started was that I was a salesperson, became a manager, or I got to like 6 people that I had to manage, and I asked, like, my budget didn't decrease, and I asked my manager, like, yo, how is this equation? And she said, like, put more hours into it. And I was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that fucking thing. So I was like, let's try out LinkedIn. And after 3, 4, 5 months, my idea was that every time a customer or potential customer goes in on their LinkedIn, they're gonna see my name. So like a free email automation, basically. And after just 3, 4, 5 months, every third, every fourth, every second, after a while, person that I met up brought up my LinkedIn work. So I was like,
All right.
this is something is going on here. So if I would start with, if you're completely new to if you have the platform, you've been on it, and you're fairly like a digital person, but you haven't started creating or anything, what I would start out with is basically get a friend that want to start with LinkedIn as well, and start body doubling, where you
Hmm.
meet up, and you book in every morning or whenever it suits you, both of you, in the calendar, and you take 15 to 30 minutes where you meet up with a cup of coffee or tea, and you're supposed to be proactive during that time and focus on adding valuable people that might be your potential customers or whatever your goal is. Um, Comment on 2 to 3 people's posts, and then take the last 10 minutes to start writing a post. If it doesn't work, if you're not finished with a post, that's fine. The next day, come back and continue writing. And it's those small steps that will bring you to greatness within 6 to 9 months, I would say.
Cool. Pretty
Yeah,
practical. And also
yeah,
consistency, and that's the toughest part for me, for example, because I'm just doing it for fun usually.
yeah.
Anyway, we're
I would
getting
say,
to yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I just want to add the thing with LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is not a painkiller; it's a vitamin. So,
Okay.
the vitamins that you need to take every single day. That's how I see LinkedIn as well.
Oh,
It's
that's a
not going
good
to
approach.
be, yeah, it's not the thing that's going to save you for anything, but it might help you in the future.
Cool, that's amazing. Thank you, Theo. So we're getting closer to this wrap up and final question. And perhaps you already are aware that I've kind of created this small interactive closing. Often I always want the guest to ask the question for the audience and just to kind of leave them with some food for thought and some kind of reflection. So, what question would you like to share with our audience to dive into today as they continue their journey of perception and self discovery?
Yeah, and thank you for having me. First of all, it's been a pleasure. And
Likewise.
yeah, and I think I would do the same question that I asked before. What is what is one small step that you can do today that brings you closer to your whatever goal you might have? Is it to reach out to a startup that you can help out with, or is it like whatever it might be? Like,
Amazing.
what can you do today? That's what I think you should be thinking of.
Thank you, Theo. It's been a pleasure exploring your journey, and thank you for such an honest and open conversation about your life and philosophy and how you do things. It's been great. And I guess final question, where people can follow your journey, what would be your go-to social media channels?
Yeah, it's my LinkedIn, so Theo Zätterström. I have a annoying Swedish last name, but yeah, so
Okay,
Theo Zätterström. You
I will
might
put it in.
be sounds awesome, and thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I'm looking forward to listening to more episodes that you'll have. So yeah, thank you.
Yay, amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who were tuning in today for the episode. Make sure that you answered the question in the Spotify comment section. And just so you know, your time and support means the world to me. And thank you for listening and have a fantastic day whenever you are.